And welcome back to State of the Union. I'm Jake Tapper. We are less than 3 months from the midterm elections. President Biden is trying to motivate Democratic voters while he confronts challenges from everything from the economy to the climate crisis. Joining us now, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. Secretary Buttigieg, before we get to anything else, I do want to ask you about President Biden's health. And he was obviously diagnosed with COVID. Have you spoken with him recently? How's he feeling?
I haven't spoken with him in the last few days, but we got a briefing during the COVID task force from people who've indicated that he's working. I know he's working, actually, because on Thursday I got a call from the White House about something on transportation that he had asked me to follow up on. So looking forward to being able to be back in a room with him, and obviously wishing him a speedy path back to 100%.
Obviously, all of us feel the same way. I want to ask you, the airline industry received more than $50 billion in taxpayer money during the pandemic. And yet, American Airlines, U.S. Airlines, have canceled more than 100,000 flights so far this year. Travelers are dealing with price hikes and staffing shortages, widespread delays. Senator Bernie Sanders says you need to start fining airlines for scheduling flights they can't staff or flights delayed more than 2 hours, and requiring them to fully refund flights delayed more than an hour. Why aren't you?
Well, we have been acting with our enforcement powers to hold airlines accountable. As a matter of fact, on my watch, we issued the stiffest fine in the history of the Consumer Protection Program for an airline that wasn't providing proper refunds. But of course, what we most want to have happen is for the flights to go better in the first place. We saw a lot of disruptions, really an unacceptable level of cancellations and delays over the Memorial Day weekend. After that, I pulled airline leadership together to talk about what they were going to do to better service the tickets that they sell. We've seen a lot of improvement since then. You look at cancellation rates for the last couple of travel weekends, they've been around 1.5%, which is getting closer to normal. It's of course never going to be zero with weather and things like that, but it should never be as high as it was during the Memorial Day travel weekend. And we're going to continue to push them, and of course prepared to work collaboratively whenever there's a chance to do things that smooth out operations in our national airspace. It's a good thing that Americans have the income and the inclination to get back in the skies, that demand is so high after a couple of years of people putting off trips. But now that demand is back, the airlines have to be prepared to service those tickets that they're collecting revenue selling.
The World Health Organization just declared monkeypox a global health emergency. There are nearly 3,000 confirmed cases in the U.S. so far. Are there any measures that you think airlines and trains and buses need to take to stop further spread, such as implementing enhanced screening for symptoms at airports and train stations? And what do you make of criticisms that the Biden administration is not doing enough to stop the spread of monkeypox?
Well, I know the administration is taking this very seriously, and of course there's now been this global action to declare an emergency too. Anytime you have a communicable disease, you need to follow the lead of public health experts. Obviously, transmits in a very different way compared to COVID, and so when you go from one possible pandemic or one outbreak to another, you need to have an approach that's specific to what public science and public health and medical experts tell us is going to make the biggest difference. But certainly something we're monitoring closely, and I know the administration's been working aggressively to enhance and accelerate things like the availability and use of vaccines and other measures that are going to make a difference to stop the spread.
President Biden's one sweeping Build Back Better plan has been reduced to legislation that would extend health care subsidies and lower prescription drug costs, climate change measures, corporate tax hikes, universal pre-K, paid family leave, free college tuition. All of those provisions gone. A lot of Democrats are blaming this all on West Virginia Democratic Senator Joe Manchin. Do you think it's fair for them to put the blame on him?
Well, look, we're dealing with a Senate where not one Senate Republican is willing to join on any of those priorities either, but also where we've been able to get a lot done. The effect of the American Rescue Plan being felt in communities across America right now, the bipartisan infrastructure law that's enabling me and my department and others to make improvements across the country on everything from transportation to internet access to clean water. These are major major achievements. We haven't gotten everything that we want as an administration. The president's continuing to push on other priorities. But we shouldn't overlook what's been achieved, and we shouldn't ever relent in pushing for what still needs to be done. I'm really looking forward to seeing where we're able to get on prescription drugs, something that would give a lot of breathing room for a lot of families. And there's obviously much more work to be done.
I don't know if you heard, but Congresswoman Liz Cheney spoke directly to Senate Republicans who are on the fence about the need, in her view, to codify protections for same-sex marriage. It's still clear if there are 10 Senate Republicans willing to support it. Republican Senator Rubio told my colleague Manu Raju he's going to vote no, and he called the vote a, quote, stupid waste of time. What's your reaction on that? What's your message to Senate Republicans?
If he's got time to fight against Disney, I don't know why he wouldn't have time to help safeguard marriages like mine. Look, this is really, really important to a lot of people. It's certainly important to me. I started my day, as I try to do on weekends. I try to give Chasten a little bit of a break and do breakfast with both of our twins. And that alone, that's no small thing, as every parent of small kids knows. It was one of those days where the tray table wasn't quite fitting into the high chair, and I'm trying to make sure that they're busy enough with their little cereal puffs to give me enough time to chop up the banana and get the formula ready. And it just, I don't know, that half hour my morning had me thinking about how much I depend on and count on my spouse every day. And our marriage deserves to be treated equally. And I don't know why this would be hard for a senator or a congressman. I don't understand how such a majority of House Republicans voted no on our marriage on as recently as Tuesday, hours after I was in a room with a lot of them talking about transportation policy, having what I thought were perfectly normal conversations with many of them on that subject, only for them to go around the corner and say that my marriage doesn't deserve to continue. If they don't want to spend a lot of time on this, they can vote yes and move on. And that would be really reassuring for a lot of families around America, including mine.
Secretary Pete Buttigieg, thank you so much for your time, and our best to Chasten and your babies.